well as maybe some would have thought. After the Lakers defeated Dallas Mavericks, actually, let me rephrase that. After Luka pounded Dallas for what they did to him, and the stands in LA said, "Thank you, Nico," you knew something was coming down the pipe. And oh boy, has it already arrived. According to The Athletic, there is a piece, and there are people within the Dallas organization who are already dissing Luca for his bad habits days before he was ousted out of his own home by his scorned wife for no reason other than she thought the grass was greener. Now, Luca's in LA. Luca's getting plenty of fed. He is eating every night. He's going to have every chance to be a fat king sitting in LA. And Dallas can do nothing but stare at it and look at it and diss the man who they had already. Now, what do you mean by diss, JB? Well, what I mean is, according to the piece, is that they said, oh, he was lazy. He developed a taste for beer. He liked to gamble. Well, you know who else played rounds of golf on mornings before the nighttime playoff game? MJ. You know who smoked 17 cigars in 4 hours the night before a playoff game? MJ. You know what MJ did every single time before a game? Whatever the hell he wanted. And you know what MJ did? What MJ always did, which was produce. Now, I think this has something to do with the fact that Luka, being a European kid, we never really knew his story. We love stories in America. No matter how bad these stories are in America, no matter how much they try to trash great IP like Star Wars, no matter what they do and they try to ruin it, we all keep coming back to it like moths to a flame because we love stories. We never heard Luka's story because we're not watching Latvian basketball on YouTube in the middle of the night. We're not doing that. But we have Luka now. Luka's on a big stage. Luka has an opportunity to prove to that scorned ex-wife of his, hey, the grass ain't always greener. And maybe you should have kept me. Guys, this is JB and Manny. We are back on Friday Junior for this edition of Box Scores and Bourbon. Manny, let's go ahead and cheers ourselves in. Look at you all ready to go.
I'm always ready to go. Cheers to you on a wonderful Thursday.
Cheers,
I am
buddy.
5 glasses in. No, just kidding.
Clink, clink. You look it.
You look too, but you look good too, buddy.
Um,
How's basketball treating you?
Basketball is treating me the same way it's treated me since Kobe left. Awful.
Miserably.
And look, I got no problem with. We talked about this last week, and we'll get into the status. Just a 30,000 foot view of just where the NBA stands, standing wise, as of today. But I've never appreciated this. Let me backtrack. I appreciate the fact that the NBA has a face, and that face is LeBron. I appreciate that
An
for
ugly face, but it does have
all the
one.
awards I give LeBron for just who he is as a human being. He is still a phenomenal basketball player.
Yes.
He can whine and cry all he wants, but he's still one of the greatest to ever do it.
Right.
Hands down, hard stop, period. But what I haven't appreciated is just how much the NBA has become much like my children. My children and NBA stars have so much in common. The only thing that separates them is superior athleticism that I see with these grown men. These are superior athletes who act like overgrown babies. This is who they are. This is how it is. You're not allowed to criticize them. If you decide as an exec to make a trade, even the execs can't act like adults. They're gonna sit there and start blaming
A
blaming
beer drinking?
blaming the player for a decision they made when every story that came out of Dallas was Nico was trying to trade Luca. This was Nico's idea, and
Right.
now Nico has this people sitting there saying Luca was just a bad teammate. Are you effing kidding me?
You know what I have a problem with? Oh, I have a problem with all of that part, but I specifically have a problem with there somehow being a bad thing that the grown adult drinks beer and likes beer. I mean, I don't like beer, but I don't bash on somebody for drinking beer. Last time I checked, Luca is above the age of drinking, being able to drink in the United States. So,
Last I
and
checked, the European drinking age is 13, so he's been
yeah,
drinking for 12 years.
well,
So
he's in the U.S., so I'm giving him the benefit of the U.S. Benefit of the U.S. doubt. But even then, th- how are we gonna diss somebody for doing something like that? Whenever, every time a series is won or any kind of great game is won, you go to the locker room and they're throwing beer or champagne around at each other with their goggles on. Like that's not we can't have it both ways where they're like embracing celebrating by throwing whatever liquor they have in the locker room at the same time saying, well, he likes beer whenever he's not at the facility.
yeah.
What?
Hmm.
That doesn't make any sense to me. That part first, that's the first part that I don't like. Secondly, there's a whole nother dynamic that the NBA, the relationship between NBA execs and players, I feel like are trying to figure out that dynamic being the player empowerment, and at the same time this well, this is what we wanted out of you, and you're not providing it, so we don't like you anymore. Because they Luca didn't ask for a trade. Luca, as far as I could tell, he was still balling out. Maybe he wasn't, maybe not necessarily putting out amazing MVP type numbers with the Mavericks, but he was still balling out. He was still doing his job. And it came out that even during the offseason, he was already happy because a lot of the he was unhappy because a lot of the staff members that were part of that Mavericks like coaching staff, they got rid of, and all these staff members that he liked, they got rid of them. And so, I mean, I understand why he would be unhappy. So that's why I'm confused on why you expect a player to have that empowerment, but at the same time, whenever they're like, well, he didn't complain about the fact that he didn't like the staff, but he was unhappy about it, and you still get mad about his actions because he doesn't like how you're treating an organization. You can't have it both ways. I don't understand where this disconnect is, but I guess that really embodies what the NBA looks like nowadays, which is we can't really figure out how to bring in the attendance. We can't figure out how to reel back some of the power that we gave the players, and we want the execs to do what's best for the team. But at the same time, we don't want them to squash down the figure that is the player. It's like a perfect tornado of them not being able to figure out what direction they're going in. So it makes sense. This is like the perfect example of why this has come to a clashing point
Yeah.
in the league, because so many things have been empowered and so many different paths are going off at the same time. It's bound to crash.
Yeah. No, this is the perfect analogy to this is when you let the kids run the household. When you let
Yeah.
the kids run the household, the adults forget to act. They forget how to act like adults, and then the adults begin to parent down to the kids. They turn into children themselves. And
Yeah.
these execs are the parents. They have let these players run amok and
Yeah.
just take control of the entire thing. And so now you get this. It's no longer just grown people making grown decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I did. When Phil left Chicago, I don't remember anyone sitting there saying, bet. And I mean, I was a kid when this happened, but I don't ever recall anything, even in my adult years, where people were bad mouthing Phil, other than just the usual stuff. He's hippy dippy and auras and crap. But like other than that, it wasn't. I mean, there wasn't anything there that was like, well, he's just a terrible person. No, it's just like, look, we were adults. Okay, it sucked. It was awful to see because you broke up this dynasty,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, sort of, and then he goes on and MJ goes on and whatever. But nowadays, it's all about like it. Most of the time, it's about the player. Like the player makes a decision. The player makes a big deal about the decision, and then if it doesn't work out for the player, he blames where he blames the broken home that he ran away from.
Yeah.
And then if it works out for the player, the one that caused the broken home is the one that said, "Oh well, he was the problem.
We didn't like him anyways.
He was the reason." So, and in this instance, it's look, to quote Colin Cowherd, look, really just for my own life, I'm divorced. I didn't want the divorce. I wanted nothing to do with the divorce. It happened. I've moved on. I have a wonderful wife. I've got a beautiful family now.
Mm-hmm. That's
Dallas
what's supposed to
wanted
happen.
his
You move
divorce.
on. No, this
Yeah.
bickering back.
Yeah.
That it's
Yeah.
not the sports leagues have not figured this out because across all major sports leagues, really, this tends to happen. Wherever once you trade a player, or the player asks to leave your organization because you're burning it to the ground, there's this hate for the player, like there's loyalty.
Yeah.
We've had we had an episode last year talking about loyalty to players and players to the organization. This whole thing where if you get mad because a player doesn't like the way you're running your organization, you get hurt at that player. The loyalty tends to not go both ways, because if you keep a player forever because the player is loyal to your organization and you burn the organization to the ground and don't do anything with that talent, there's nothing to show for it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be the first to get rid of that player if you don't like them. So it blows my mind, the dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else that kind of resonated with me. It's the comparison between the NBA and I'll bring in the NFL a little bit with this, because for a long time, as the NBA started doing this player empowerment, on the NFL side, there was these rumbles that players wanted to have more say in what happened in the organization. And it seems like ownership and GMs really squashed that really early on in its infancy. And initially when I saw this happening, I was kind of confused, because I figured if the faces of your franchises want to have a bigger voice, you should want to empower that. But it seems to me like the NBA followed that path and somehow created a beast that they can no longer control. So maybe the NFL was kind of on the right path when it came to the hierarchy of who has the bigger say with what's going on, because the NFL is, if anything, booming in the right direction. Their viewers, their income, and the revenue, everything is skyrocketing. And the NBA, I haven't looked at the revenue margins, but it gives the feeling that it's kind of wavering into the decline phase of their operations.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And and we've said it over and over again. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. The NBA is unwatchable. Yes, they have stars. They do. They have some guys with just such superior athleticism that you love watching it day in and day out. But it is also just a different sport too, because because it is so much of the league just lets the players just do what they want.
Yeah.
And we can sit here and talk about, well, stories matter. Stories matter, being able to track a player from infancy to what they did in college to their first shoe deal to what they are in the NBA. But MLB's got plenty of people who play in countries that we will never visit unless we're, from the window of our cruise ship. That's the only time we'll ever visit them. Yet baseball really doesn't have an issue. No one's complaining about baseball and the fact that, there's no stories. I don't know. Shohei Ohtani is the face of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Many people never watch Japanese baseball. There's nobody watched Japanese baseball.
Not in this country for the most part.
The only time they watch Japanese baseball is clips of Shohei when he said Shohei was coming over here. Mm-hmm. And even then that was met with moderate, hoopla. But in the NBA, we have great talent and we have great European talent. Yet it seems as if all that stuff gets pushed under the rug, and instead of us being able to enjoy the crescendo of these European storylines of these players, we get stuck with what is this bull crap? And then 3 years goes by, we're like, yo, this Giannis kid in Milwaukee, he's pretty damn good. So it's sad because it takes away, when you let the children run the household, it takes away from just the value of being a home.
Yep.
And the NBA houses superior athletes. I mean, it is incredible watching what they do day night in and night out. But having the league run by the children and the execs and who are the parents just start screaming and yelling and having their own tirades and just throwing fits. It's really hard to really be invested in it.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's not LeBron's a great face, but LeBron didn't do any favors when he wanted to hold an hour-long special about him wanting to go sit on the beach in Miami. So it's
That's where
and
it
then
all started. That's where it
I
all
mean, like,
literally started.
when you just like make a big old thing. I'm gonna give a counteract to this. So a counterweight to this is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant sat on Draymond Green's show with Baron Davis and they said, "Hey, KD, why didn't you want to go back to Golden State?" And KD's like, everyone's like, "Oh, I can't stand Draymond. We don't get along. Burned too many bridges over there." And he's like, "Fact is, I just didn't want to move mid-season. I don't want to move, and I'm here in Phoenix. We're hurt right now. They've had 13 different starters this season because no one can stay healthy,
Hmm.
and he's like, I want to finish this out. I want to finish this out."
Yeah.
And it's just it's refreshing to be able to hear from a player, and it's also ironic that out of all the players who get so much flack, is the one guy who just wants to do his job, and that's KD. He
Yeah.
just wants to do his job, and everyone in the sports pundit world seems to give him flack for not being the guy, not having a winning DNA. I'm sorry. Did Golden State never exist? Did
Yeah.
his time with Steph and them never happen? Are you kidding me?
Last time I checked, he won Finals MVP. Last time I checked, he was the most
So,
valuable player for a championship.
and that's what's wrong with the NBA is not only the kids running the league, running the home, the parents are sitting there screaming down, and then you have the aunts and uncles coming in here saying, I want to have a family reunion," and they're just yelling at everybody,
Hmm.
and they're yelling just to yell,
Hmm.
and it's dysfunctional. It's not fun to watch, and I mean, besides the product on the court where there's practically no defense now, it's just there's. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's just the product is messed up, and it needs to begin with the execs and actually those who run the league. Adam Silver, I'm talking to you to sit there and get with the owners and say, owners, get your execs in line. It's time that we get the NBA back to a respectable level to where people want to watch this,
Yeah.
not watch it just because it's March and it's almost playoff season. Like,
Hmm.
no, people want to sit down and watch it from Christmas on.
Yeah.
And
And it's the players having 99% of the voice. It's the players deciding that they're going to. This is a whole nother conversation that we could dive into probably for another hour, talking about the players deciding when they're going to sit out games because they want their bodies to rest.
Mhm.
This we've harped on the fact that people spend their hard-earned money to go watch a game just
Yeah.
to find out 30 minutes
Mhm.
before that the player that they want to watch isn't even going to play because they want to
Yeah.
rest. Because they,
Yeah.
let me be clear, because they want to rest. Because there is players that are capable of playing 82 games in the season. There is players that miss games because they're injured, but there's players that literally decide that they want to rest so they don't play back to backs
Yeah.
or 2, 3 games in 4 days,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And
Yeah.
that's another, like I said, we could dive into this at a very deeper level, but that's a whole nother problem that is
Yeah.
causing the same issues that we're talking about now because there is
Yeah.
so much uncertainty behind every game. You don't know what you're going to get, what the product is going to be like, who's going to be on the court. There's more than one issue causing the current status of the NBA to be what it is. But ultimately, it come down to the foundational level that we talked about last, where it's more about the player than it is about representing the organization that you're playing for.
Absolutely.
Comparing it
Yeah.
to the NHL, how
Yeah.
dominant they have how dominant they are when it
hmm
comes to the players representing their franchise as well.
Yeah. I.
But
Yeah.
let's take an analysis on the current status of this NBA and see how these teams are playing out their season to as we go into the last month and a half about month and a
Month and
half
a half before it
of the
matters.
regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah, before because we have 10 teams in the running to make the playoff and play-ins and all this other stuff. So let's dive into the conferences and see how we feel about the current status of these conferences. Starting with the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Currently, we have the Cavaliers as the
hmm
number one team in the league, and
Yep.
I'll be the first to say. Early on, when we did a kind of an overview of the status of the NBA, I did
When
not
they
expect the
were
Cavaliers to
when they
hang.
were 12-0, and you're like, it's not gonna
It's
stick.
not gonna last. Yes, exactly. So I mean, it's lasting. They have surpassed the Celtics as the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, my question is, I mean, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but I'll have your input on it. Is it just because the Celtics are once again doing the Celtics way and riding it out before turning on the gears and dominating the playoffs, or is this something brewing in the Cavaliers?
I think there's something brewing in Cleveland. I mean, the way they play, they from the very little that I've seen the NBA so far this season, and I've seen very little so far because it's not even March yet. So I the from what I've seen, they play a a style of basketball that is opposite of of the rest of the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems as if they and I said this last season when it came to Boston, and I said if the Celtics can find an identity, they can go far. And it seems as if Cleveland has their identity. They know who they are, and they play. And that's why, like, if you're asking me, like, if you were to ask me today, who would be in the finals today, it would be Cleveland and OKC. It would be these two teams in the finals because what Dagnall's got going on in OKC is just awesome. And
Yep.
he's got, I mean, these players are bought in. And OKC already does such a great job at just the coach pipeline. I mean, having Dagnall come up with Billy Donovan from Florida, and then keeping him in the league and within the organization with the G League, and then him coming up as an assistant, and then and then the unfortunate thing happens with in Monty Williams' life, and then here comes Dagnall coming up full time, with the squad, and eventually, when it comes time to find a new head coach, the players are like, no, we want this guy.
Yeah.
This guy, this guy understands what it is that we would like to do in this building. He understands what we want to do as a culture, and
Mm-hmm.
culture is so vastly important. It's so important, and so I look at Cleveland and I'm like, I mean, look, Cleveland's not slowing down. They're not. They're not at all. And so it's I honestly can see Cleveland and OKC in the finals. I
Do
can
you
see.
think Do you think Cleveland will hold on to the number one seed throughout the rest of the regular season?
Um, yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they have it's
with a 6-game lead right now
yeah, it's a
over
6 game lead.
Boston, it's
Yeah.
a comfortable enough lead
Hmm.
where the wheels are just going to have to fall off for
Right.
you not to be the number one seed by season's end.
Yeah. And I mean,
So
at the same time, uh, number two seed at the level that the Celtics are playing is nothing to laugh at. But at the same time,
mm,
in a way, I'm almost leaning towards wanting to say like shame on the Celtics for not being more closer to it should be if the Cavaliers were going to be the number one seed, the Celtics
yeah,
should be right behind them, 1 or 2 games behind. A
yeah,
6 game lead as the defending champions, considering they didn't really lose any of their pieces last year. It's to
they
me
just
it
yeah.
doesn't make sense. They should be
Mhm.
playing better basketball. And again, they're 42-17. It's not something to scoff
Yeah.
at, but
Yeah.
I mean
And
you would
what's happening in Boston could just be Joe Mazzulla trying to find some, just just trying to find some workload management there.
Yeah.
I mean, they played what 30 more games than the rest of than the other 30 teams in the league. That it's like, okay, well, let's try to find some workload management here. We'll do some mix and match, but
Yeah.
it is interesting that the uh, you have you know you have the New York Knicks who um, Tom Thibodeau's never even heard the concept of workload management, and so I mean these players just get run into the ground, which is fine. That's perfectly acceptable. It is acceptable to do that.
Yeah.
Like if you're hurt, you're hurt. If you're injured, you're injured. Either way, you play. You play. That's it.
Hmm.
Like stop coming up with reasons not to play.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I
what I
don't
don't like.
I didn't grow up this way of like, hey, whatever you do, find any excuse you can to not compete today.
Yeah.
Like it's just completely just the antithesis of my thinking. And
Right.
when I watch Nick basketball, I'm like, I love watching Nick basketball because he just says, go out there and just do your business. Do your business. This is your job.
Yeah.
You play 3 games a week. That's what you do. You play 3 games a week. Just go out there and do your job. That's all I want you to do.
And it's the workday is not very long. Let's be honest. The workday for a basketball player is not. I mean, I know the workout it's a full time job when it comes to being prepared, but like the workday itself is not that long. They have a lot of time to be able
Yeah,
to recover and rest in between games.
they do.
There is a team though that is lingering right in the middle of this pack that we kind of have to give some credit to, and that is
Hmm.
the team coming out of Detroit.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Pistons are
Yes.
lingering, hanging around at the 6th seed right now.
Hmm.
And my predictions were not very on point early on in the season because I did not expect this out of the Pistons. And even if the wheels fell off of the Pistons as they currently are, they're currently sitting at 33 and 26. So
Hmm.
they're well above 500. But if the
Hmm.
wheels fell off, this is encouraging to see out of the Pistons from an organization that was
Yeah.
the laughing stock of the league for a
Hmm.
long time. They were bottom of the barrel, if not the worst team in the conference last year. I don't
Yeah.
remember the Wizards gave them a run for their money, but they were they were they were not in a position to think they were going to be competitive this year. For them to be sitting right in the middle of being able to be in the playoffs this year is a testament to what their head coach is doing, and like you said, the culture that they're building in that franchise. Even if they fell down to the playoff, I would consider. I'm not the playoff. If they fell down and had to
Hmm.
end up being in the play-in, I would consider that a success, considering where they were 11 months ago
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. No, what's funny to me is I remember we talked about it a little bit last year when when they were trying to figure out what the hell was going on with the Pistons and
Yeah.
Monty Williams' player management and everything like that. And one of the things that came up was his handling of Cade Cunningham.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, okay, well, it's odd to not just want to just kind of just want to have this guy just kind of run and just kind of just build up his momentum to be able to kind of be the guy. Um, but uh, Kate Cunningham is doing some fantastic things right now, and he is the heart and soul of this team. I
Yeah.
mean, you can sit there and point to Tobias Harris, you can point to Tim Hardaway Jr., but being able uh, to have have Cade Cunningham kind of be the star here in this league or in this team is huge. And one of the things that I think that has clicked is JB Bickerstaff has done something in Detroit where he has made this team believe
Hmm.
because they have come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They have come out of absolute nowhere, and now they're in a position where if the season ends today, they don't even have to do the play-in. Like
Right.
they're in the playoffs.
Right.
So which is huge. Um,
That's what I'm saying. Even if somehow they started sputtering a little bit and other teams started figuring things out and they started falling down the rankings, even if they made the play in, if they fell down to the play in, that would still be impressive for the status of the Pistons. I'm not saying like, oh, over you overperformed, but
mhm.
because of how they were, it's impressive that they're where are they are right now, where they have room for error. They do have room for error, which is
Yeah,
no. I would not have sat here and said the Pistons are going to be in a position to solidify their position, their
mhm.
place in the playoffs. That was not something that I was ready for
Yeah,
on my bingo card for the 2024-2025 NBA season.
yeah, yeah. No, if it's nice though because just on just on a sports fan level, like it's nice that Detroit has something to just be proud of when it comes to the NBA. I mean, the
Yeah.
Pistons have been a laughing stock for what nigh on 2 decades now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and just to be able just to look at this and be like, wow, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This is so cool right now. And then when you have, just for the city of Detroit itself, and when you have the what's going on with the Detroit Lions, and what Dan Campbell's done over there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have what's going on um, with the Tigers. AJ Hinch is building something with the Tigers, and even the Red Wings.
Yeah.
It's nice that Detroit as a city can like look through the grand landscape of their sports and say, man, this feels nice. This feels real nice right now.
Detroit being a city of sports once again, or becoming a city of sports once again, is not the worst
Yes,
that could happen for
yes,
that city.
yeah. So I can't remember the last time all four sports teams were reputable.
Yeah,
It was something you can hang your hat on at the same time.
yeah.
So it's and so it's but I'm pulling for Detroit. I really am because it would be something special just to be able to see Detroit, and especially after all the flack Monty Williams got last season. And yeah, he had some. I mean, he had some management he had some mismanagement issues and whatnot, but he was really looking at the future of this team, and then you can see what he was doing last year, kind of producing some fruit now. He's
Mm-hmm.
not there, but producing some fruit where JB Bickerstaff can work with him and say, okay, we have we have the pieces here. We don't have the pieces to run the gauntlet, but we have the pieces to make some noise. So
Mm-hmm.
let's do that. Let's
Right.
do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Now moving on to the Western Conference, which is, in my opinion, all over the place. With the Thunder being number one, justifiably so, but the Grizzlies number two and the Nuggets all the way down to number three. That is where I'm, and then the 3-4 spots are what's shocking me. The Nuggets three and then the Rockets four
Mm-hmm.
is surprising for two different reasons. Same kind of the same approach with the Rockets. I didn't expect they didn't make substantial moves in the offseason to put themselves in like a competitive position to where they're saying we're building onto what we have, like we're bringing in players because we're competitive. Therefore, and the Nuggets again, for as dominant as of a roster as they have, them being three and way far behind in the standings as far as even sniffing the possibility of getting the number one seed, that's surprising too.
Yeah, no, and it's I mean, so it's not surprising that the Western Conference is, of course, the belle of the ball when it comes to the NBA because it's always so much more stacked than it is in the Eastern Conference. I mean, even if you look at the Eastern Conference, all four teams that are due to play in are below 500. In the Western Conference, all four teams for the play in are above 500. So it's like it's not it is surprising in the Western Conference the teams that are in the running as opposed to the teams that are not in the running.
Right.
But um, it's the Western Conference to me. It seems like it's always come down to the last 2 weeks of the season.
It
The
really
last
does.
2 weeks, Yeah, and so it's just it's always about okay, here we are now, but where are we going to be 4 weeks from now?
Hmm.
Where are we going to be a month from now? Because in about what was it February 27th? In about 3 weeks now, we're going to get to the very end of the regular season, and then it's going to be okay. Now you're going to see a bunch of just of these teams just eating each other alive,
Hmm.
and then that's when it's really going to really paint a picture of who's on top. But then even then when you get there, I mean last year, I mean no one. I mean yeah, we were like, hey, they're a decent team, you
Yeah.
know, Ant's a pretty good player, being the bastard child of MJ. He's a pretty good player, but like it's like but we never, but watching Minnesota just kind of do what they did in the playoffs was like, whoa, okay, no one, I didn't have this on my bingo card last year,
Yeah.
and so, and I think the difference between last season and this season is that the team the team holding the number one seed right now and who's probably going to end up as the number one seed, OKC,
Hmm.
I can see them just run the gauntlet. I can absolutely see it because we saw glimpses of it last year.
Yeah, they
The
were right
only
there.
the only thing that stopped them was the inexperience.
Right. Yep.
Now they had the talent. Now they have the experience,
Yep.
and so that is, what's the old adage? Hard work can beat talent, but nothing can beat talent that works hard.
Yeah.
So like OKC's, they have that.
Yeah.
They have that,
They
and
have a lot. They have so many of the right pieces in place, and now when I'm saying pieces, I'm not even speaking directly with players. They have a young roster. They have the right pieces in place as far as coaching. The, I'm not. I'm not skipping the players on purpose. The players themselves are great. They seem like they're working together just fine. Uh,
mhm.
but they also aren't necessarily doing it in the way that a lot of teams try doing it, where they try recruiting free agents. They've drafted really well. They've
Mhm.
not sold their future draft picks to bring in players or to trade for players. So
They haven't.
everything,
This is a
everything
homegrown
that
team. Yeah.
exactly. Everything that they've brought to the table is because they have built it from the ground up. And they're still in a position to get better because their draft picks are still there. They still have so many draft picks. I forget how many draft picks they have in the next 5 years, but they're loaded with draft picks where if they continue to do what they're doing, they can continue to bring in really good pieces that they're finding in the college realm. So they're
Yeah.
set up for success this year as a number one seed and holding on to that very strongly, and they're set up for success in the future. So I would expect the Thunder to not be going anywhere. They should regularly be sitting in the top three, maybe four teams every single year for the foreseeable future. Now,
Mhm.
before we get too sidetracked, I want to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig all the way to the bottom of the standings to your homegrown team that is 14th right now in the Pelicans. And I'm just
Still
gonna
have a
keep
shot.
this.
Still have a shot. Not over
Yeah,
yet.
at 15 and 43, you're never out of it.
Yeah, if they were
But
still in the Eastern Conference, they'd be,
they'd be in the
they'd be
play-in right now.
yeah.
But here's my question about the Pelicans. Zion Williamson, the
Yeah.
the name that has been forgotten all this year. I have heard not a single peep about him.
Mhm.
Is he a bust, or was the expectation just too high for what he is actually supposed to be in this league?
Yeah, the answer to that question is no and yes. So Zion's not a bust. He's not, because when he is on the court, this dude is an absolute game changer. And the problem is just getting him healthy and just keeping him healthy. And I was I was one of I was one of the contingent that subscribed to trade Zion before you gave him the max deal. Before you gave Zion the max deal, trade him, because Zion seems like, and I hate this phraseology, but I used to hate it, but the older I get, the more I see. Okay, there's actually something to it. He seems like a change of scenery type of guy, like someone who can just get out of his element, can shake it up, and then go to another organization, and then go to an organization where there is a like bona fide kind of just veteran there, someone who can sit there and say, Zion, this is what you need to do. You want longevity in this league. This is what it's going to take. And the Pelicans have really had that type of guy. You could sit there and say maybe it was C.J. McCollum, maybe it was Brandon Ingram, maybe, but he never really had that guy who could sit down and say, Zion, this is what it's going to take to be long lasting in this league.
Hmm.
And like I said, Zion's talent is just through the roof. That when he is on the court, this dude produces, and it is a sight to see. But it happens too far and few between, and so I'm of the camp that says, okay, I know you signed him already, but if there's a way you can trade him and try to bring some pieces back, some assets back,
So you're
do
gonna stay
that.
here and tell me you like him but get rid of him? Is that what the stats you're taking?
Yeah, because he's not, because as long as I don't think he's going to reach his full potential in New Orleans.
I don't think he's reaching his full potential. Period.
None
Let me
of
just.
I'm not saying he's reached it yet. I don't think it's going to happen in New Orleans. And
No, I
it's
get what you're saying. I'm
yeah.
saying I'm leaning more towards he's a bust. Is what I'm saying. I don't think the skill set is necessarily there for what the hype was behind him. That's my stance. The health
If
thing.
you see him play when he's okay, this is not like a Ben Simmons type where Ben Simmons was hurt and then he gets on the court and you're like, oh, this is what we were waiting for. This right here. When
Right.
Zion's on the court, Zion is he is in fuego. This dude is he changes the the just the phrase of the game. Like he just like every single phase of the game he changes when he is on point. And when he's on the court, he's on point. It's just it's just him staying healthy, and I don't think him leaving New Orleans, I think is going to shake him up. I think that could shake him up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't think he's a bust though. I think okay, I'll put it this way: the I think the longer he stays in New Orleans, the more that narrative is going to linger.
I
If
don't.
he
I don't
was
know if it's an. I don't know if it's an actual organizational thing. Bec- Because even when you're in a bad team, especially in the NBA, when one player can dominate the court single-handedly, there should be more glimpses of him being able to dominate. I think it was last year where he started showing a little bit of that, but even this year, he's only played 21 games. Um, he seems to have been a little bit, for the type of player that he seems to have been, in my opinion, a few years too late. For a big-bodied kind of player that he is, he dominates the paint really well. But if you look at the bigs that are dominating the league nowadays, they're bigs that can also play the perimeter. He hasn't necessarily developed that part of his game, and it feels like you need to be able to develop the perimeter game, the perimeter aspect of your game to be able to be more dominant or more of a well-rounded player. I'm not. It's impressive that he can dominate the paint the way he does. But I'm not impressed by the fact that he can dunk 99% of the balls that are put in his hands in the paint. That's not, to me, a winning recipe of a player. You need to be able to kind of go through, be dominant, and be a threat offensively, no matter where you are. If that's the perimeter as a big, that's such a such a uh, such a
Mhm.
strong skill, like a powerful weapon to have. Whenever no matter where you are, they have to account for you. Right now, if he's not in the paint, if he's not posting up or dominating in the paint, you don't really have to worry about him. And it's unless he I'm leaning towards bust because I'm not seeing that. I'm not saying that he can't change that, but unless he doesn't incorporate that part of the game into his repertoire, it seems to me like he's gonna be a little too late for the party of the bigs in the league.
I don't think, and look, I'm going to disagree with you. And I know this is so rare for us to disagree on something. We so often agree on
We love
everything,
agreeing on
which
stuff.
what makes us so interesting and so much fun to watch and listen to. No, like Zion, okay, Zion missed what 27 games beginning what like the middle of November. He's had a 15 game stretch where he has been on the court.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a 28-minute limit. Okay, I think the highest he's played was against the Spurs. It was like 29 minutes and 15 seconds, I think it was. That's how much time he had on the court. If you're doing per 36 minutes average, he's putting up 33 points a game. I mean, his talent is there. And I hope to goodness, really, I mean, this has been a lost season for the Pels since November. But what I've been wanting to see is Zion do this on a consistent basis.
Well, I mean, that is the
Continue
issue. He has never been consistent. How long has he been in the league now? 5 years? He's not been consistent once.
Well, I know, but he's played 15 games in a row now. And what I'm saying is, and the difference now is he has played at the lightest weight that he has ever played with.
True.
Look, I come from New Orleans. I'm a New Orleans boy. Okay, that jambalaya is delicious. Okay, it's hard to put down a po' boy. All right, shrimp etouffee looks like because it looks like a soup, but no, that puts some poundage on you. All right, it's not easy to get away from the food there. It's not. It's everywhere. And Zion was already a big boy when he came into town.
Yeah, he was.
What he has produced in the last 2 weeks alone has shown me, okay, if he can keep this up. Remember last year when the Pels, all they had to do was beat the Lakers in order to get to the play-in. That's all. Right. That's all they had to do. Zion gets hurt with 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left, he gets hurt, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Zion changed every single phase of that game. Zion has the ability to be such a game changer where he is just electric. Now, I'm not going to give up on, what is he, 23? 24 years old. He'll be 25 in the summertime. I'm not giving up on a 24-year-old who's just having injury issues. He had injury issues in Duke too. So it's not new. It's not like he came in, he's like, all of a sudden I'm hurt now. He wasn't like Ben Simmons. Like he just decided to, I'm fragile. No, like Zion is a big dude. He is huge. His frame can only handle so much though. And I think he's learning how to do that. And how this season ends, how the next 4 weeks goes for the Pels I am watching Zion be Zion. I'm watching him be Zion on the court because when he is on the court, he is otherworldly. This dude has a talent to play this game, and he has a talent to play it at a high level. It's just keeping him healthy on the court. And I think what's happening now, him playing at the lighter weight, I think that is what's going to help him. Because
my closing argument on this is that we've been waiting to see a fully healthy Zion since he came to the league, and we've been waiting to see Zion dominate a team the way that we thought he was going to. He has yet to do so, and we keep giving him the benefit of the doubt of if he's healthy and he stays light. We have yet to see it, and we keep waiting for it to happen. So if it eventually happens, I'm not sold that it's going to ever happen. Because it hasn't happened in 5 years. It hasn't happened since college.
That's what I'm saying. Give it the next 4 weeks. Okay? If he can stay on the court the next 4 weeks, I have even more hope that he is going to produce at a high level and he is going to be the center of attention for the Pels for the next 4 seasons. He will be that. He will. I still have faith in the kid. I truly do, because I've watched him play, and when he plays, when he's on the court, he is electrified. He does so much in his frame that is counterintuitive to what you should be doing when you're that big. So, and look, what he has done this season too off the court is he has stayed engaged with the team. Mm-hmm. The narrative with Zion was that when he was hurt, he just disappeared. He didn't care about the team. He would show up at the games sometimes in his civvies, in his street clothes, whatever. But then this season, it has begun to change. It has begun to change.
And I'm looking at
the next 4 weeks
It only, I mean, not if to close this out, what do you think he's closer to being? An all-star or a bust?
An all-star.
Okay.
Absolutely an all-star. Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I've said my stance. I feel like he's closer to being a bust because I've yet to see something that tells me he's going to be consistently on the floor. And that's a huge factor for an 82 game season. You have to be able to play be on the court. And for playing, I know he got hurt early on in the year and he's only played 21 games because he was out for an extended period of time. But this isn't the first time we've seen it.
I know it's not. And I've watched enough NBA to know the difference between. I've watched enough sports to know the difference between a bust and someone who's just having an issue with injuries. This is a young kid. He is immature. He came out of Duke way too soon, and he got thrust into the limelight. And so now it's just a matter of him understanding what it means to be an actual teammate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Agree to disagree, JB.
As usual.
Let me introduce a segment to tease people to next week, and then we will jump into our fix of six. With 8 weeks before the NFL draft, starting next week, we will be doing a new segment called Buy, Balance, or Blow It Up. We will analyze every division in the NFL and decide whether each team, what direction every team is going in that division, whether they need to buy more pieces, keep doing what they're doing, or completely blow up their team and start from scratch. But until then, we are jumping right into our favorite segment, which is our Fix of Six. JB, you ready?
I am ready.
Take it away.
Okay. For JB's number 3 fix of 6. The Brock Purdy contract negotiations have begun. And if you ask John Lynch, they've begun for quite some time already. Now, I am of the part of the camp that says Brock Purdy, should get a contract that mirrors Baker Mayfield's. 3-year, $100 million. Let's see what he can do with that. And because we have not seen enough from him in order for us to be able to sit there and say, give him all the money. And there's 2 reasons why I'm going to say we need to just, if I'm John Lynch, I'm approaching him with that type of mindset. 1, Trent Williams is 37 years old. This is a man that has been hired and paid beautifully and handsomely in order to protect Brock Purdy's blind side. It is not okay when an article comes out that says we are going to do what we can to manage the workload of arguably the second most important position in NFL football. You should not have to walk into a season trying to manage the workload of your left tackle. The other reason is Brock Purdy does not know a life without Deebo Samuel. Deebo's on his way out the door. Now, as much as we can sit there and point to Deebo's paltry stats of last season, when he was on the field, he was still a safety blanket for Brock Purdy. Now, they have Pearsall, they have Jawan, and let's see how this contract plays out with Brandon Ayuk. If that turns out to be, boom or bust, I'm thinking bust. But Brock Purdy does not know life without Deebo. And so Deebo's on his way out the door. We have no idea what's going to happen. So if I'm John Lynch, this is where I'm going. 3 years, $100 million. That's my high point. JB's fix of 6, number 2. I already mentioned it earlier. The Kevin Durant saga about him not wanting to go to San Fran to go play with Draymond and go play with Steph again. Everyone needs to just back off of KD. We need to back off of him. He is one of the guys that does his job. He goes in, he does his job, and when he does it well, and when he's on a competent squad, they win rings together. It just is a fact of life. This dude does not win a finals MVP. You don't stumble into a finals MVP because there's no one else left. And someone else didn't want to accept it. No, this dude works hard, and all those out there who are sitting there saying Katie doesn't have it need to just shut up and sit down. JB's fix of six, number one. It has taken way too long, and I have not. I wasn't the biggest fan of this player when I was a child when he was playing for my my Chicago Cubs. But Sammy Sosa is in spring training talking to Cubs players right now. Sammy Sosa is in spring training. He is in Arizona as a special instructor to these young guys. And I got to tell you, I love every single thing about this because when you have a franchise that has star players, that has iconic players, and you let them in the door to be able to talk to the young guys, great things happen. Sammy, welcome back. I'm glad to see you back in Cubby Blue. That is JB's Fix of Six. Manny, go.
On Manny's fix of six, number three, Travis Kelsey has announced to literally nobody's surprise, that he is coming back next season to try running it back as the Chiefs and win yet another ring. And the words he used was that the way that he played in the Super Bowl left a bitter, sour taste in his mouth. And we all know what we saw in that Super Bowl. Travis Kelsey dropping balls left and right and not getting open and not even being able to block or chip a defensive lineman on his way to a flat route. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. I think I called early on that he was not necessarily too serious about him wanting to retire, especially after taking a loss, considering the pride that that organization and specifically Travis Kelsey has as a player. But Travis Kelsey will be back. We have to see what they do with his contract because the current status of his contract does not necessarily scream paying, getting your money's worth, considering how he's been playing lately. But we'll see if the Chiefs decide to restructure his contract to make his salary more palatable, and so they can build onto what the Chiefs are doing to see if they can get another ring for Travis Kelsey. On Manny's number two fix of six, let me bring in a team that we did not talk about, but we should talk about a little bit, and that is the 76ers, and specifically Paul George. For those of you that did not realize, because a lot of people seem to have forgotten that Paul George signed with the 76ers, and he has been the Brock Purdy of the 76ers. Why? Because he's the all-star player of that organization? No, because he's Mr. Irrelevant of that organization. He came out last week and said he is going to take a break from his podcast, his weekly podcast that he does, to focus on himself so he can be a better teammate and make a push with the 76ers to make the play-in. The play-in. Currently, the 76ers are second or third from the bottom of the Eastern Conference. That is something that Paul George should have figured out in October and November. The 76ers are 12th right now. 20 and 38, not even sniffing the play-in right now. And here is my thing about that. More players should follow this footstep of Paul George and realize that maybe if you have a full-time gig as a player and you're getting paid millions of dollars, that maybe the podcast should take a back seat to your full-time job, and maybe you should be focusing on winning, putting your team in a position to win championships. Paul George, good job figuring out that you want to be competitive and do the best that you can to make sure that your team is in a position to play longer basketball, but you're a little too late to the party considering where your team is on the current standings of the NBA. And Manny's number one fix of six. I'm going to give a shout out to Luka Doncic because he apparently listens to the podcast. And after I got destroyed on social media for saying that he is being overshadowed by LeBron James with the Lakers, he proceeded to completely wake up, remember who he is as a player, show dominance on the court. I'm glad. Shout out Luka Doncic for listening to Box Scores and Bourbon. But at the same time, there's two players that I want to bring into this segment, which is Jimmy Butler and Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, since he got traded to the Lakers is 7-2. Since Jimmy Butler got traded to the Warriors are 6-1. And this once again reminds me that this might very well be the last hurrah for LeBron James and Steph Curry to make a push to win just that one more championship. It's never enough. You never win too many championships unless you're Tom Brady. you always want to win that last one on the sunset of your career. And if these two pieces aren't what it takes for one of those two teams or one of those two players to make the finals and take on the OKC Thunder in the conference finals, then there's not really much else you can do because you don't have the pieces, you don't have the draft stocks to build onto the current status of your organizations. So, congratulations to the Warriors and the Lakers. It seems like both of their trades are kind of paying off, but I want to see what you do with these two players in the NBA playoffs come April and May. And that closes out Manny's fix of 6. And we are ka-ching done.
Yes. Manny, what were you drinking tonight?
I promised everybody that I was going to try a new bottle, and I sure as heck found a new
Yes,
bottle.
the old granddad. I love that.
Old Granddad 114 proof. I
Yes.
I went specifically to go try something new, and I will tell you, it's a. If you want to know this is what 114 proof tastes like, this tastes like 114 proof.
Yes.
But it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. JB,
I was drinking this Stellum bourbon right here, and not
nice.
to one up Manny, but this is 115 and a half proof. Uh, and this was not planned. I happen to drink a stronger spirit than Manny does. So, and then I was smoking this Tabernacle Lancero. It's always a fun go-to for me. Easy smoke,
Nice.
full bodied. It's really good. Folks, catch us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, full episodes, Box Scores and Bourbon, on the socials, YouTube, X, Insta, BSB Sports 24. And until next time, stay thirsty.
Cheers, everyone. Ooh, that's rough.